what do you think people, tech, marketing, well-being, entrepreneurship have in common? Vieira. We're living in the times that require us to act in the intersections of many areas and think outside the box. And I have a true expert on how to make it happen. His life is a real journey from a corporate HR leader career in several organizations to a tech and a startup ecosystem. A founder at Thriveme, a platform that encourages the culture of well-being. A person with a special visionary about where we're moving within digital era as digital humans. Welcome, fantastic David Van Lochem to B2B Marketing Now podcast. David, thank you very much for finding time to come over to my podcast. And as much as it seems to be strange that you are on a marketing podcast, I think there are so many fields that have got those intersections nowadays, like they really cross. Plus, I know you're actually running a super interesting project that has got all to do with marketing, which we're going to discuss later. So thank you very much for coming for my marketing podcast, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today. So I would allow you to introduce yourself now.
Thank you, Louise. The introduction. I mean, my basis is basically HR, human resources, but I'm not a typical HR person. I always made a cross with technology. People are important, but technology, I always believed in that. I was one of the first HR people, I think, who created their own automation back in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
Was able to program something in Visual Basic. Some people still might remember that. So, yes, and I took that further in terms of working for different technology companies, including IBM, where we met, but I also worked for Cognos, for IDEMIA, and my last corporate role was with G42 as the CHRO for this AI and cloud company. Next to that, I believe I'm also pretty commercial, so I kind of like have this entrepreneurial spirit in me, and I combine all of that together right now, and I'm really happy to do that. And that project is called. It's actually not a project; it's a startup company, although I believe we're a little bit beyond even the startup level. It's called Thriveme, where we absolutely in an amazing way combine corporate wellness with data science and AI and try to kind of like improve the world.
Brilliant. No, it's actually, so thank you for, giving all these details because, we've been connected over LinkedIn for quite a while and then we worked together back in the days. And I remember you as an HR leader, taking care everything about people and what it has got to do with people. And then over LinkedIn, I've started to notice that you've got so much connection to technology and, human being and technology, and I got so interested. And then recently when we spoke, I found out that you're running your own company, which is called Thriveme, a well-being startup. And I thought we absolutely need to talk because I think the topic of well-being generally is very important nowadays, especially in the time of the change that we're all going through after COVID, etc. And is this the reason why you went into a well-being area, or is it something that's very personal to you? So I'd be interested to hear what's behind the well-being tech startup.
Oh, wow, yes, and yes. So first of all, you're very right. If you look at well-being, where it used to be more like an individual responsibility of the employee, where it used to be more like a nice to have for companies, it really, the whole pandemic has shifted it from this level to the level of like organizations, companies realize that it is actually at least a shared responsibility and how important it is. Because a lot of people during lockdown, my own experience was that as well, is it puts a lot of, you need to put a lot of effort in to stay healthy and not overeat. Make sure you still move as much as you can, even if you're in an apartment. We were lucky that we had a garden, but if you don't, like, it wasn't easy. So physical wellness was important. Mental wellness. I feel really sorry for people who have been in bad relationships and being during lockdown.
Oh, absolutely. It didn't play good.
I cannot even imagine how that
Yeah.
must have been. And then with your children, or if you have children that you have to educate at home. So there's a lot of strain on mental wellness as well. And that's one of the hottest topics right now. And then combined with the financial wellness, the pay cuts that a lot of people cut or losing their jobs.
Yeah.
That kind of like made me realize, I mean, I can tell you about the story how I got to data science, but I will do it.
Please. Yeah. No, absolutely. Because I'm very much interested. And I think the whole well-being topic is definitely pretty much connected. So bring it on.
Yeah. So my background besides HR, like I said, is also very much technology. And it really kicked off when a former colleague of mine from the UK visited Dubai, and we had dinner on the creek. And she said, like, I work for a company. Let me not call the name right now, but she said, since people know that I work for this company, they don't talk to me on birthday parties. They look weirdly at me, etc. And I said, why? Because you're one of the most bubbliest, loveliest people that I know. And she said, because I work for a company that actually creates bots, not the physical bots like robots that people think about, but the digital bots,
Chat
automation.
Bots.
Yeah, in other words. And that's really made me realize that, and that's a few years ago, that AI and robotics, RPA, robotic process automation, is actually happening as we speak. And I felt a lot of my HR colleagues or in the HR field didn't realize that. They didn't know enough about it. So what I did was I studied data science in terms of, like, I learned how to program in Python, what is one of the languages.
Wow.
And I didn't do the executive programs. I really wanted to know how it really works. How do you distinguish a cat from a dog based on a model? And it's not so easy to do so. When it came to automation, I went on every possible webinar I could find. So webinars were not that popular around that time, but in technology they were. And yes, I took the opportunity. And I was often the only one who didn't live in Bangalore, but it was fine.
It's okay. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and based on that deep knowledge, and then I started speaking on seminars. It was pre-COVID, so it was still a lot physical. I remember that I was in front of a whole group of recruiters, and I was just taking them to the journey where AI and RPA will impact their job. And like, a lot of them didn't believe me, or they were disagreeing with me. And if you look at reality right now, yes, there are a lot of AI-based applicant tracking systems where people quickly shift, or where the AI is basically quickly shifting to the right candidate. Even if you have 1,000 candidates or people applying, AI will quickly help you find the one that is the potential best match. And robotic video interviewing, it's not strange for people anymore to have a video interview. It's also not strange for people anymore to have a video interview with a bot. So this is happening as we speak. So that was the start of my journey, automation, and then how it connects actually with some people thought that I had lost my mind. Like, you are HR, you're about people, and you're preaching about AI. It's a kind of like you love dogs and cats, so you don't like people, or the other way around. No,
to me, it has always been connected. I mean, whatever I've heard, like messages over LinkedIn from me as an HR person, but also talking about technology, for me, it was pretty logical. I mean, I always had a feeling that there's a huge connection between them. So I'm happy we're talking same language here. Yeah. Yeah,
and absolutely. And I really believe that technology will really positively impact our lives and positively impact the place of work. And so that's where my journey started. And I didn't get COVID, luckily enough, but many people, of course, got. But the lockdown, the whole pandemic, kind of like made me realize that we really should use this technology as much as possible for the benefit of people. And this connects me actually back to the product called Thriveme. because we are using the data to improve corporate wellness programs and potentially also improve the basically the medical insurances, the life insurances, to how let's say the premiums, the right premiums, etc. So a company will also benefit from it. But it's mainly about data. That's also why we're very keen on integrating as much wearables as possible, because when you measure something, and this is a personal journey, I know from personal experience that a high blood pressure or an irregular blood pressure can lead to a lot of things, like stroke, heart failure, etc. If we can use AI, data science, to prevent people from these kind of events, to warn them on time before the event happens, that's a good thing, isn't it? That's something that, instead of ending up in hospital or maybe worse.
How to keep up with the current environment where everything changes. So obviously you have to focus a lot on yourself as a human being, on your body, on your physical state, to be able to sustain all this. So it has to start from you. And if technology can help, it's absolutely amazing. So, and I wish you all the best of luck with Thriveme for sure. I have to ask you this. I have to, because so you mentioned a couple of times that the whole topic of technology came to you as an HR leader for the reason that you felt that technology at some point is going to either enhance or, transform a lot of processes that are connected with HR. So one of the biggest, for example, and one of the most painful processes, frankly, in Dubai, what I felt in myself many, many times as well, is the recruitment process. So I'd love to hear from you, because you've been obviously in the Middle East for quite a while. So I faced a lot of different, things that could impact your well-being eventually when you are in a process, for example, of job search. And there's a lot of, there's a lot of not coming back, a lot of silence in the end. I mean, which probably is understand. There are a lot of candidates as well. So what's your vision? So what do you think? So what would you give probably as an advice as well to people who are in job search? Because we can, approach this topic from multiple dimensions.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine. I think we all have seen or felt or know someone that has been, let's say, extremely disappointed in the way that they have been approached in terms of new jobs or searches, or applied for a job and never heard back, or things like that, or heard back in a very unprofessional way. Let me leave aside, because there is new legislation around that in terms of like discrimination and all these kind of things, but look at the process itself. First, we have to keep in mind that for every job in Dubai, there are often hundreds and hundreds of applicants. I think most companies don't even dare to post a job on LinkedIn, because you will get tons and you cannot handle it. And this is a kind of like, secondly, there's also a cultural element. Some people come from backgrounds where it's very important in terms of like image to always come back to a candidate, even if you reject. If it's a regret letter, there's always a regret letter. Other people are from countries or cultures where that's less common. But put all these things aside, technology can really help this process. And this is also when I told you about, for example, the speech that I did for the group of recruiters. I told them, I said, your AI will not only help you to first select the right candidates and make it, instead of a passive process where you wait until somebody applies for a job, a more active one. What if AI would tell me that you, Larissa, would be the perfect catch for a job, instead of advertising it and having all these CVs? So there's the first step. Secondly, if you still advertise, a smart system can help you quickly go through all these CVs. Think also a little bit on the other side. If you are the recruiter or the hiring manager, and you have these thousands of CVs in front of you, what will you do? Well, even if it's digital, what will you do? How will you go through it?
I don't know.
Yes, you will look. So what happens now often is like you take the first 10, 20, you start shifting based on some keywords or you read something in a CV. It's maybe somebody from the same school or the same nationality, or it's the company name that you like, but you miss so many good candidates because of this process. Secondly, it's a very inefficient process as well. So besides that, you probably won't even find the best candidate out of all these candidates, out of all these CVs. It's even a very inefficient one as well. So AI can really help shifting that. But then, and that was my other point, is like if you use technology, because AI is a bit of a umbrella, and the bigger umbrella is technology. If you use technology to augment this HR function, but also improve the communication with candidates. Like even it's better to have a bot or automation assistant telling you, listen, you're currently in the process in stage A, B, or C. Your CV seems to match pretty well on this side, but matches a little bit less on that side. There are currently approximately 15 candidates still who have higher score than you are. At least you know where you stand. That's better than not hearing anything. And I think that's where automation can really take over, because you cannot expect all these recruiters, human beings, this is our limitation, to A, go through all these CVs. B, when you think about interviewing, how would you interview 1,000 people? No way. If you can use robotic interviewing where the bot will ask you the question and the AI will analyze the answers and the non-verbal communication, that would really help. Maybe it's not perfect today, but in the future it will be. And then if you can also automate the communication with your candidates, then as a recruiter you can play a far better role in terms of making sure that a candidate matches the culture of the company and be an ambassador for the company. So yeah, that was my story. There's a good role for everyone in that sense.
Thank you very much for sharing your view and highlighting those trends. And there's a very good quote that I found from Ginny Rometty. Some people call it artificial intelligence, but the reality is technology will enhance us. So instead of artificial intelligence, I think will augment our intelligence. And I think that's pretty much what you said. So AI in recruitment and HR is supposed to enhance the intelligence of HR professionals towards what they're doing. So I want to go deeper a little bit. I know you've got a special visionary about so-called digital people. So we'll jump into that topic now, because we're living in a hybrid world. Mm-hmm. And our hybrid environment has created a generation so-called digital humans or digital people. So I'd like to hear your visionary around that. What is it? So what does it mean, digital humans, and how do we live now? So please.
Right. Okay. Let me first take it then a little bit broader and then go deeper into the HR function. I think we're all kind of like becoming digital human beings. If you look at this one, a smartphone, we basically we meet via smartphones. We have dating applications. We connect. We stay connected. We learn via our smartphones. So in that way, we already have a virtual assistant. If you think that your bank or your utility company is the only one who has a virtual assistant, you already have one. You have Google, you have Siri, or you have Cortana, or Amazon. I think I mentioned most of the popular ones, but yeah, you already have a virtual assistant. So in that sense, we're becoming digital people. I think where the awareness is even more important to really become is like, my youngest daughter goes to school and they call it data smart. Know where data is coming from and know what data is doing. Because when we look at AI itself, when you look at data science, it's nothing really new. The big thing is actually that we have so much data nowadays. And with that data, we produce insights. And with these insights, we can do a lot in that sense. So it's really important to really understand how this process works. And I think that's where we should be more focused on in terms of like becoming digital people. If you understand it, at least the basics. And it's not that we all need to learn how to code. That's not. I see a lot of people going to coding classes. Yes, I did coding as well. That was more out of interest. We're not all going to be coders.
Yeah.
But it's more like understanding how it works and what it is and what it isn't. It's not some magical intelligence. And I think that's what Ginny Rometty also mentioned, means. It's more like the fact that we have so much more data and can do predictions based on the data and kind of like improve our human life. And the understanding on how it improves, that's really important.
Totally. And also what type of data we collect and what do we do with this specific data towards specific processes. So one of the traits of the digital people is the ability to understand and work with data. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And understand indeed where data is coming from. For example, there was an example of Amazon where the AI-based CV selection software, let me make it simple, was kind of like bending towards selecting white male candidates. Everyone knows that that's wrong. Like it's discrimination. It's silly. It doesn't really fit a corporate environment. Some people said that's because it's coded by men, white men, or at least by men, and that's why they had a bias. That's not true. I mean, that might be true that it's coded by a lot of men, but that's not why it was biased. The reason why it was biased because the model was basically was trained on past data. So if traditionally a male candidate has a better chance to get hired by a hiring manager, then AI is very simple, trying to find the best way of going to the quickest solution, the quickest hire, the easiest way. So it's more about this context. If I wouldn't accuse the programmers of not being data smart, but like if you would be more data smart and understand, like if this is historical data and it has contained a kind of like an error or something that we don't want is against our values as human beings, then we need to be more careful with that data. And probably maybe adjust a little bit the data that we're using, that we train the model on, or build something in the model to avoid that this error is happening, or put human oversight to it. It doesn't need to be that the computer says no. There can still be a human oversight to say, like, this is what we should be doing or we shouldn't be doing. And I think this human oversight is extremely important.
That's right.
For these important processes. Yeah.
So it makes me feel a little bit more relaxed. So we still have got a huge room for humans to fit in. So but that gives me, that leaves me as a human being a chance to participate in what technology does. At the same time, it also puts me at risk, like, okay, what if it gets into the hands of the wrong people?
Yeah. So we're kind of like going into what do you need to do as a human being? What kind of skills do you need to have, or knowledge or competencies to deal with this new digital world, right? And I like this market change is the only constant one.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we already had data smart, know where it's coming from. The other one is critical thinking. What I mean with critical thinking is really like being able to understand that what you see, for example, we're Deepfake. Let me quickly explain.
Absolutely, yes. So what's Deepfake?
Deepfake is basically the use of artificial intelligence or AI to create a reality that it's not a reality, but something that looks like real, and it's very hard to distinguish by human beings or even technology itself from reality. So it is, for example, there are deepfakes of the US president saying something that he has never said. It would be something like Elon Musk sending a tweet that he never sent. That's deepfake. You see something on television and it never happened. It's created. It's a created reality, or it's actually not a reality. It looks like a reality. That's deepfake. Then the question...
Do you see it as a threat, by the way? So because it exists and it evolves, because people are using it and technology, so that goes to show how skillful and how sophisticated technology nowadays is. is it in the process of fighting against us nowadays? Does it create a threat, or what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a threat or a risk, but it's definitely risky. If you think about, and we're talking a big scale right now. If you realize that a tweet of Elon Musk can drive a cryptocurrency up and down, if you then think like, so fake news, fake realities can really cause misunderstandings, misconceptions, and people might act on it like they did, basically, or like that. There are some examples where people did. So we have to be very, very careful. Yes, it's a kind of like it's like a weapon. If not even a weapon, let's put it this way: deepfake can be good fun. I mean, you can create deepfakes, or maybe somebody wants to have a deepfake of their grandmother that no longer lives there, or we all want to see a singer singing a song that he never sung, a video clip of a singer that never sung. That's perfectly fine, I guess, with deepfake.
That's an opportunity, right? Actually, to go to a different dimension. Yeah, I agree with you.
We have a new song of Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston unfortunately left us a long time ago. But if we have a new song of Whitney Houston, she never sung it. She wasn't there, but people still have that emotion with it. Is it wrong? No. If we know as long as we are honest about it, that it's actually deepfake. But then, of course, when we abuse it, or governments or organizations abuse it to manipulate the sense of reality of people, then it's wrong. And I think this is something, now we're talking about marketing, where you should put the limit. Maybe you are able with deepfake to influence something that would benefit your company, but I think you need to put a disclaimer there.
No, it is definitely somewhere in the space of brand standards and, brand mission. And so definitely it's a big conversation about what brands and how can brands use technology in sort of content creation nowadays, but also keeping in mind that technology can put a lot of things at risk if not used correctly, or if it's used by wrong people, etc., or if it is used with the wrong message.
Yes,
surely.
Good food, good exercise, healthy body creates a healthy mind, and yes, everything goes hand in hand.
Speaking about skills, so I mean, considering we're so very much into technology for many years now, and we've got the generation of kids that are growing up, and we still have a lot of skills that are maybe could be enhanced by technology, but they stay. We spoke about, sailing skills, for example, at some point with you. Yeah. And so how would you sort of recommend, or what's your vision towards how to choose your next skill to master, or how would you help your kids to choose what they want to study next, etc.? What's your vision around that?
Yes. So I think we're hinting a little bit towards what I call empathic capabilities. I think it's not something you can really learn, but it's something by awareness you can develop, but it needs to come from inside. If I would ask you a question, how are you? But I don't say it with a deep meaning that I really want to understand, how are you? Actually, how are you feeling right now about this interview?
I'm very curious, by the way, about what's happening. So that I'm genuinely curious in the conversation.
Yeah. So if I ask it in a really empathic way, although I can ask you 3 times, how are you? But if the one time that I'm really empathic will catch your attention and will kind of like make you feel like talking. I think this one is very important. And I think that this kind of like analog feeling where you really feel human, the human touch, remains extremely important. We spoke earlier in our pre-conversation about, for example, you could automate, let's say, auto responses in HR, in terms of like, if somebody calls sick, you could have it's not hard to automate the answer and say, that will cost you, you have 15 days of sick leave in the UE, blah, 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 please see a doctor, etc. If the bot will ask you, if you would automate it, the bot will ask you like, how are you feeling? Would you really kind of like answer that? No. But if your manager would ask you, or your colleague would say, how you're feeling, how are you feeling today? Like, or whatever. Or let's say you lost somebody who's close to you. If a bot will tell you like, yeah, we are so sorry for your loss. If it's a bot and you notice that it wouldn't work, the empathic capabilities of mankind are still extremely important. And the good thing about automation is all these standard replies, all these standard actions can be automated. AI can take out a lot of the work that we don't like to do, B, we're probably not even that good at, can take it away so that we have more time for things like being empathic, being with each other. So also, one time I had a father who asked me, like, my daughter wants to join our sailing school because we have a sailing school. Or do you think I should let her go study coding and AI?
What would you?
And I advised him, actually, I said, the sailing school is actually a very good idea. I don't think that people will move away from sailing school. I mean, let's say we don't need sailing boats anymore, right? I mean, it's just leisure, but the feeling of being on the water with winds and with all the elements and doing it yourself in that way is probably still something that we want to do in 20 years from now, 50 years from now, maybe 100 years from now.
You're right. You're absolutely right. So empathy cannot be automated. Is that basically, so empathy is still left to humans to the
Correct.
extent that a bot or a machine cannot create the same type of emotions.
No, I fully agree on that. That's actually what I want to say.
And that's actually why, after all the, for example, technology and tools that came up into marketing in the recent years, so I would say 2021 probably started with COVID. It's a year where I can see a lot of human element in all marketing campaigns and in what brands are trying to do. A lot of faces, a lot of authentic videos where people are telling their own true stories without rehearsing. A podcast, for example, like this, it's a conversation that is not really a rehearsed one. It's based on a genuine curiosity. So the authenticity, empathy that is brought up into a digital space has become a real value, which I think...
I mean, I said more or less the same on the radio, but here, for example, this podcast, you could have pre-recorded it, asked me the questions, and I could have answered that. We couldn't even be here right now, and we wouldn't have the same level of interaction and engagement. So it's a perfect example where... But still, we are happy that we are surrounded here by digital technology so that this kind of like conversation can easily be recorded and shared with a lot of people. Versus
Absolutely.
If we have to go out and do this conversation time after time, one-on-one, how we used to do it in the old days, like that wouldn't work. So technology can really enhance our lives, but at the same time, it wouldn't completely take over.
So I've got a few questions around marketing, actually, because I know you're running your tech startup.
Yeah.
And I know, like, running a tech startup, especially when you're probably your team currently, or your resource currently is quite limited, because when startups are growing, I know because I've worked with a number of them. So there's a limitation on budgets, on resources, etc. And it turns out that you can cover multiple functions. As, for example, as a co-founder, as a general manager. So you turn to cover also your marketing activities. So my question to you, how do you see, as a general manager, as a co-founder, how do you see the role of marketing in what you're doing with Thriveme now?
Right. Okay. Very good question. Yes. When you work for a startup, you basically do everything. Anyway, if you work for a small company, you basically do everything. I always give the example when I worked for a smaller company back in the Netherlands that I was doing the dishes next to interviewing high-level candidates. I mean, we didn't have a dishwasher around that time in the office. So that's what can happen. Marketing is a profession by itself, I must say. Although we all have an opinion about marketing, it's the same as we all have an opinion about human resources. We have an opinion of, nowadays everybody has an opinion about IT even. So we all have an opinion about marketing, but I feel like it's really It's challenging. And if you look at Thriveme, we basically have 2 levels of marketing. One is our business to business, because we sell to organizations. But we also want to, of course, reach the end users and keep them engaged and keep them happy about the using the application, because without use, there will be no data, there will be no success in that sense. And it's not easy, because you talk about things like image, brand awareness. What do you want to be? So yeah, I'm looking for, in terms of marketing, and one of the biggest, very strategic for us is to increase our market share, to have a lot of people using the application. So we want to be different. We want to go. So as a marketeer, I would say I would like someone to be to think out of the box is a term that is too often used. Just be daring and curious, and be passionate about what you want to do, and just don't have no fear of failing, because we fail. Yes, sometimes we pitch and we don't get it because we did something wrong, but the next time we'll do it right. And that's what I want to see also in terms of marketing support. Like, how do we build a brand that appeals to people? And not for everyone, because if you try to please everyone, it doesn't work. So how do we appeal to a relatively large group of people, and how do we stick out from other solutions? So yeah, that's what I would like to see in the marketing.
There's a saying amongst marketeers, life is too short to work for a CEO who doesn't understand marketing. Yeah, so I think Thriveme is an amazing opportunity of somebody who is actually brave enough to be brave.
Yeah.
Because marketers should always sort of keep a balance between a process, a budget restriction, and the fact that you want to go and try a lot of things. But I think what I hear, and that's absolutely right. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're a marketeer or you're an employee, part of a team of a growing startup. What's more important is the attitude. So normally growing companies, like startups at the very early stage, they're very much focused on lead generation and business generation. So they need desperately expand their presence in the market. And that has to be an attitude of each and everyone who works for the team like that. Because and then you do it obviously from your domain. If you're a marketer, right, you go and dig out the opportunities, how to make it great from that perspective. If you're an HR person within that company, you look for the best candidates to fit that particular culture. And yeah, I think it's the attitude of, yes, I want to go and I want to rock it. And now in a position to do a big transformation. So what would you recommend to them? What's your choice? Would you do the same? Would you do it differently?
Wow. Yes, that's a very personal question. I would say it's not necessarily about corporate versus a startup. I think your environment, the people you work with, is very important. So when you ask me about a marketeer, I want to say I want to have someone that is fun and feels like a friend, because I think it's like but also a friend where you can be very honest to, and where you can be quite direct sometimes, but also direct in terms of appreciation. I think the environment is extremely important when you make these choices. I know brilliant people who have found that environment in the corporate environment. Sometimes large corporations, it's a bit harder to find it than smaller companies, smaller mid-sized companies. Small companies are normally, by definition, almost a little bit more entrepreneurial. But yeah, do what you're really passionate about, I think, and something that really is really you in that sense. And that's for me as well. For me, it's really important to do things that I'm really passionate about, that I believe that I can put to the next level. And then the question of like corporate or basically having your own business is more a matter of freedom versus security. And what is more important? And that's a very difficult question that is different for everyone.
How do you answer this question for yourself? Freedom or security?
I think that freedom is more appealing than security. And I think if you do what you really want, what you love to do, then that security will come. But it's not for everyone. It's definitely not for everyone.
But do you think it can be balanced? I mean, you can
Yes.
have a pretty secure job, but at the same time, be in a company that has got a culture of freedom in thinking, or is it a possibility? For example, maybe in the future, Thriveme is going to be a company where you have a freedom to act,
Yeah.
and a culture to act, and quite a secure position, right?
Yes, I mean, if you look at larger corporations, and I don't think it's fair to mention names, but offline I can do. A lot of them have like greenhouses, incubation units, like where they really foster this kind of like an entrepreneurial mindset. And that means there are opportunities for people to have a kind of like bit of both. I think that would probably be for most people the most ideal situation. So I would really like to see corporations more thinking like that, but also human beings should be more thinking instead of, I need to have it's all about having a permanent, steady job. There's nothing secure about that, actually. On the longer term, we all have seen it. A lot of people worked for airlines. They thought that, I even thought that pilots will always be needed. And whoever thought about this pandemic situation?
Absolutely.
Like, I felt like that was one of the most steady jobs. They were always in the air.
Yeah.
But the reality is, like, some of them lost their jobs last year because that can happen. So I feel like be a kind of like more entrepreneurial and see work in that sense. Work 2.0, whatever you want to call it. Be a bit of an entrepreneur, have your own things, and maybe work part-time or for a period of time or for a longer period of time in a more corporate environment. I think that's at least for me is an ideal situation, and I think for many people it will be a very good situation.
Absolutely. So last, you might choose not to answer, but I mean, there's a very popular exercise: start, stop, and continue. So what would you continue doing to support your values, to support what you're doing? Let's make it totally personal, professional, linked to your job, linked to your business, etc. So the answers could be, so what would you start doing? What would you stop doing? What would you continue doing? Let's say.
Okay, let's start doing what I would do. I think I would start even being more daring. I think it's sometimes hard to get out of that corporate environment, and I think I need to start more being willing to really let go and have that level of confidence and freedom to really do what I want to do. I don't say I don't do it now, so maybe it's more continuing, but it's like I feel like I should be doing that more. Stop doing is like, and you also said something like you regret that you wouldn't have to. I would have loved to be more entrepreneurial far earlier in my career, honestly speaking. And I knew I always wanted. I always, even when I was working for Deloitte, the guys knew that my ambition, and they always told me, have your own business. It will go well. So yes, I would have loved to do that earlier. Having said that, looking back doesn't help anyone. You can only learn from it. And in terms of, so that's more on the stop. The continuing doing is like continue to take care of the people that are surrounding me. Be you. I believe that I'm a pretty caring person. At least that's what I'm told. I'm very connected with people. In general, I think I have a lot of friends. I'm lucky to have a lot of friends. I'm very well connected on LinkedIn. I helped a lot of people through my life to make you by using these connections. I think I should just continue doing that. If you can give that to society, you should just continue doing it. There's no reason not to.